Hi, I'm Sandra Champlain. What you're about to see or listen to is an extraordinary conversation I had with Andrew Oxman. He is a licensed mental health counselor and also believes in angels. And what a unique story he has about what happened to him when he was younger and how he coexisted having a life as a therapist, but also believing in angels. And now he's totally out about his belief in angels. And in this episode, he talks about that subtle energy, how we can pick up on it from the unseen world, how he communicates still with his deceased parents on the other side. He gives some good, wonderful words that are very healing about grief, and then how we can be in touch with our own guardian angel, that we're never alone. So stay tuned, keep listening or watching, and here's our episode of We Don't Die. Welcome to another episode of We Don't Die. I'm your host, Sandra Champlain, author of the international best-selling book called We Don't Die: A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. And just a reminder, my home base is wedon'tdie.com, where you can always find great things like medium classes. If you want a free copy of my book, you can just scroll to the bottom of the page, enter your name and email address, get a copy of my book and some other great goodies. And then on Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, we offer a free Sunday gathering inspirational service, very empowering. And there's a medium demonstration included. So those things and more at wedon'tdie.com. Now, let's meet our guest. Today, we're talking to Andrew Oxman, a licensed mental health counselor with 29 years of experience. His lifelong path of spiritual seeking led him to study everything from clairvoyance to A Course in Miracles, with a special calling to understand and communicate with angels. This dedication eventually led him to a profound personal experience where, in his words, his guardian angel became consciously present in his life. He is the founder of An Angel Talk, a safe space for participants to talk about angels, learn sixth sensory skills, and communicate with their guardian angel. Andrew is passionate about teaching others the gifts of this wonderful guardian angel human relationship. Let's find out more. Andrew, welcome to We Don't Die.
Thank you, Sandra. It's a privilege to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited to talk to you about this. We're not neighbors, but we are pretty close. You're in Massachusetts, United States, correct?
Yes, yes.
And I'm not too far away in the little state of Rhode Island. Tell us about you, a little bit about your background, getting into the mental health field, and then, yeah, we'll weave in angels because that's very unique.
Yes. So taking a big breath to kind of leap of faith here. Um, so I grew up, I was born in the United States in the mainland, and I grew up in Puerto Rico. And my parents moved there. My father was a city planner and he got a job at the planning board. And I didn't grow up with a strong spiritual background. And I'm grateful for that because I wasn't taught to believe anything in particular. And I had an opportunity to approach spirituality with an open mind. And when I was a teenager, I loved boogie boarding and I was out boogie boarding in storm surf. And not the brightest idea, but when we're teenagers, we do all kinds of things that we look back on. And I went out, I got out to the lineup. The waves were too big to ride, too chaotic. They just weren't rideable. And I started paddling back in and I went through the zone where the waves break. And I turned around to see if there was a wave behind me. And I saw this wall of water coming at me, this huge wave. And I knew instantly that I could die. And out of my being came this vow: God, if you let me live, I will do anything you want me to do. I didn't think that. I didn't plan that. It just happened. And so after I graduated from high school, I moved to the Boston area and I lived and worked in pizza restaurants and was thinking about my future. And one day I spontaneously walked into an Air Force office to sign up for the Air Force. And I filled out paperwork. And at the moment I was going to sign my name, the strong intuitive feeling came into me: don't do this. So I got the courage to heed that guidance. I put down the pen, I walked out of the office, and I ended up going to the University of Massachusetts. And in my second year, I was drawn to a course called Spiritual Autobiography. And when I attended that course, it just opened my love of spirituality and spiritual writing and the awareness of my soul. And that was where I began my spiritual seeking. And so after that, I was introduced to a Seth book, one of the Seth books by Jane Roberts, and then Emmanuel's books. And as I continued my spiritual journey, I had different experiences that opened me up to awareness of a larger reality than just being on earth in a human body. And I discovered A Course in Miracles. I was first introduced to it after college, but when I opened the book and started reading it, I was like so intimidated by it. I knew it was really important, but I just was not ready. And then in my 30s, I was reintroduced to it, and then I really was ready, and I just started really appreciating it, what it has to offer. And then through a series of synchronistic events, I ended up moving to where I am now. And in 2008, I was in Barnes and Noble, just aimlessly wandering around, and I got this intuitive nudge to go to the New Age section, which I did. And I scanned the books and I pulled out a book about angels and I opened it up and started reading it. And wow, my passion just opened up right there. Totally unexpected. I never really thought or believed about angels before that. I didn't give them any serious thought. So I had had an angel intervention before that, where I was at a four-way stoplight. And when it turned green, I went to put my foot on the gas pedal and my body was frozen. I couldn't move my body and my car didn't move and I didn't know what was happening. And a split second later, a car just barreled through their red light right where I would have been if I'd started driving. And once it was down the road, my body was released and I could move again and drive again and my car would drive. And I had no way to explain that because I didn't believe in angels. And it wasn't until years later when I was reading about angels, studying angels after the awakening of my passion about them in Barnes and Noble, that I realized that was an angel intervention. My life was spared, or at least terrible injury was spared for both myself and the other driver. So, um, so I started studying angels, reading book after book after book about them. And I started realizing I'm going to need to grow into more sixth century awareness in order to communicate with them. And that was a whole new kind of stage of life, moving from 5th century to 6th century and learning how to see, hear, feel, and know, have, messages from angels. And along the way, one day I was in meditation and I was guided to go to a particular used bookstore, and which I did. And there I found a particular book about angels and the angel human relationship. And that reading that book in 2016 was when my guardian angel became consciously present to me. All of this was totally unexpected. I had no idea this would unfold. And so from that day forward, you know, she just gently started working with me. And it wasn't every day, it wasn't all the time. It was just a gentle, every once in a while, coming to my presence, encouraging me to take better care of myself, then starting to teach me spiritual lessons. And the more I was open to receiving her presence and asking for guidance, the more she became more prominent in my life until now today. She's just here every day. And, you know, it's a whole different way of living. And I'm so grateful. And um, I'm grateful to have had friends whom I could talk about this, because otherwise it would have been a lot harder. Because, you couldn't go around telling a lot of people, oh, I have this angel, my guardian angel in my life, It's like coming out of the spiritual closet. And I was really, I watched your video, the very first one with your phone in your car. And I just was so touched because that was so courageous for you to do that. That was so courageous and so vulnerable. And it was such a great example of what it's like coming out of the spiritual closet and just being yourself. And so the more that I'm growing into this relationship, the more I'm learning to just understand that we're not meant to live here alone. It's a supreme act of love to become a human being and to walk a human life. This is courageous to be here. And we are and we're never meant to be alone on this journey. And we're accompanied, we're loved, we're supported, we're guided. And if we're willing to open up to live a sixth century life and really be receptive to all the guidance that's around us, we will receive it with love and encouragement and assurance and support. I mean, it's just wonderful. So I love teaching about this. There's so many experiences I've had with my guardian angel. And I just finished giving a series of 3 workshops for IANs about the guardian angel human relationship. And it was just wonderful to teach. And my guardian, when I was giving the angel talks, she guided every single one, a story to read, a teaching to offer, um, exercises to, lead everyone through. And when that first came to me in meditation, I was in meditation when she asked me to do that. And I was like, what? That's no, I can't do that. People will laugh at me, they'll make fun of me, they'll reject me. But she was just very steady, and she kept encouraging me and kept putting in place steps that led me forward. And then I did it. And then for over a year, we were meeting together on a monthly basis and doing this work. And it was just wonderful. There was a core group of people who came and others who came in and out. And it was, when you're doing something there, you just feel like you're aligned with why you're on the planet. And that's what that felt like. And then the pandemic came and I stopped. I just had no idea how to work Zoom, and I was intimidated by Zoom, and I just let it go. And then when I joined IANS, I just grew into that community, just loving the sharings, the sharing groups, and the topic groups, and the presentations on Saturdays. And then came the idea to submit a proposal to do some kind of offering on IANS involving angels. And I received wonderful support, and I ended up, you know, being encouraged to do a series of 3 workshops. And again, it was like being led forward to do something that was scary. And yet I was prepared for that by that time. I had been in the organization over a year. I'd gotten comfortable with many people there. I'd been invited to be a facilitator and a moderator, which I do on the sharing groups. And I just love doing that, creating a safe place for people to talk about spiritual experiences of all kinds. And I really know that we are in a time of massive spiritual evolution on our planet right now. It is happening. And it is a joy and a privilege to contribute to this evolution. I can't think of a better reason to be on the planet right now. So when I was invited to do these workshops, I submitted my proposal, it was approved, and I started working on them. And my guardian just guided me in so many ways about what to write. And I included photographs that I'd taken on each one. I never saw that coming. I was looking at all these photographs from the Zoom collection. No, not Zoom, PowerPoint, excuse me, from the PowerPoint collection. And all of a sudden, my guardian nudged me and said, well, what about your photographs? And I was like, what? And when I started looking through them, I realized, oh, this is perfect, because a lot of them are about nature, the beauty and the sacredness of nature, and how important that is and how uplifting it is. So she guided that process for all three workshops. And then, when I received the email from you, I was again, terrified, like, give an interview. um, and again, just prepared step by step. You can do this. This isn't an accident. It's okay. It's going to go fine. Don't worry. And so what's being shown here, what's being, I think, modeled here is that when we work with a guardian angel, we are truly guided, and we're guided with gentleness and kindness and absolute belief in us. We are believed in so thoroughly. And in my experience, I've ended up being able to do what I've been asked to do each time. And so there's this growth involved, these steps of growth, and guided through the fears, held through the fears, and growing each time and evolving each time and contributing more. And what I've learned is that serving others really is just so important and so fulfilling, and helping others, you know, receive support for their spiritual experiences and believe in themselves and know that they're on a new path now and that it will unfold in a good way and in the right way. Um, I heard someone say recently, and I totally love this, that there are 8 billion people on the planet. And so there are 8 billion ways to God. Everybody has their own path, and it's just right for each person. And isn't that beautiful? So, so different ways a guardian angel can help us. I remember one day, I used to have a struggle with emotional eating. And I was, standing at my kitchen counter one day, emotionally eating, and I could feel my guardian angel next to me. And she communicates telepathically with me, as happens for, all of us when we're communicating with beings on the other side. That's the the clairaudience. So she sent one word into my mind. The word was walrus. And I just cracked up. I laughed and I laughed and I laughed. I mean, I laughed harder than many times in my life. And what I realized in that moment was how impeccably she understands my consciousness, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And she sent in the one word that she knew I would understand with humor and love and gentleness. And that was a breakthrough for me, because after that, I really changed the way that I eat. Again, you can't see these things coming. They just, if we're open, if we're willing to be open and receptive, we will be guided in ways that we never knew were possible. And it's wondrous. And it's real, and it happens. And so she started teaching me a number of spiritual lessons. She taught me about time. She said, don't rush. When you're rushing, you're going against time. When you slow down and you give yourself plenty of time to do things, you stay present with my presence with you, and you can receive my guidance. And so I've learned to really slow down and allow plenty of time to do things and stay more present with her. There's no perfection in this. My ego tries to get in all the time, every day. There's a lot of, what's the word? Vigilance. I have to really be vigilant about watching my ego come in and choosing not to go with that, choosing to stay with my guardian. And then really discerning the difference between communication from an angel and messages from the ego, which are always negative and doubtful and, encourage us down a path that doesn't feel right. But when I'm able to set that aside and just listen to my angel and follow what she's teaching, her guidance, it always works out much better. So the choice becomes more and more clear. And of course, the miracles has taught me so much about that, the difference between the ego and, you know, guidance from God and living God's will and, the difference between the ego and God's will. I mean, it's just so valuable to learn this and understand this. Um, so my guardian angel, she leads me to different kinds of experiences that awaken my understanding more and more. My understanding about nature, for instance, the sacredness of nature. She's taught me to see nature in such a different way. Every blade of grass is sacred, every tree, every insect, every flower, every plant, every animal. And I find that the more I evolve spiritually, the more I appreciate and value life and just see that God is the source of everything. And which reminds me of an experience in my 20s after I had read Emmanuel's first book. I love the subtitle, A Manual for Living Comfortably in the Cosmos. And after I read that book, this was in my kind of late 20s after college, and I started having these kind of panic episodes about losing my parents, even though there was no obvious reason for that. I just started feeling that. And I was like, oh. So one day I prayed to God. I prayed for God to reveal himself to me in some way. And for comfort, I just needed comfort to deal with these panicky feelings. And one day I was in my room doing a yoga pose, a standing pose, and I happened to look over at the windowsill, and there was a mourning dove standing in the windowsill looking in at me. And I looked into the eye of the dove, and it was revealed to me as the eye of God. And in the split second, I had this experience of God's omnipresence. It just coursed through my consciousness. And I saw and understood that God is everything, everywhere, all the time, inside of time, outside of time. There is nothing that is not God. And I was stunned. And I always, it's one of those spiritual experiences we have that's just embedded in us. We never lose that. It's always a part of who we are. And that really helped me understand God's omnipresence. Like it's not an idea, it's not a concept, it's a reality. And so when I look at a plant, that plant, was created by God's love, and an insect, and everything alive is created by God's love. And my guardian angel has really taught me about that, to see that, to understand that. Another time, as I was growing, there's a continual growth into sixth sensory awareness. It never stops. It's just huge. It's endless. It's infinite. There's never an ending to it. And so one day I was really struggling. I was feeling kind of depressed. I'd eaten dinner, I'd watched a movie, neither of which really did anything for me. And I went to bed and I lay down and I just poured my heart out to my guardian angel about how I was feeling. And she just kind of sent to me this very comforting energy. And then she said, up and at 'em. And she wanted me to go for a walk. Now, this was kind of late at night, a time I normally wouldn't go for a walk, but I did. And as I was walking, she taught me about what it's like becoming more spiritually focused and living from the soul, not from the body. And that as we evolve into living more aligned with our soul, things in the physical world may not be as comforting as they used to be. And so then that's the time to seek what nourishes our soul, what nurtures our soul, and to focus on that. And she really helped me understand what was going on inside of me that I couldn't, I wouldn't have known how to put it that way. So then when I came back from my walk, I felt better. I felt lighter. And I just was so grateful to receive this teaching again of her showing she understands me so impeccably. There's nothing about me she doesn't see or know or understand. And so every teaching, every interaction with her is worthy. Every interaction has something to offer me that's for my highest good. And I believe that's the same for all of us. Everyone has a guardian angel, at least one, and everyone can be guided in this way. And we don't have to be alone. And yes, sometimes there's, a sense of physical aloneness, being in a body, contending with an ego. And then, I remember the first time she taught me about what's called the heart link. And this is, where she began sending this energy, this feeling into my heart and uplifting my heart and connecting us, through my heart and then connecting us more closely. And we came to call it the heart link. And so when I feel the heart link with her, like I'm feeling right at this very moment, there's this connection that's just so loving. And then I remember, of course, I'm not alone. How could I be? And so it's been just this ongoing unfolding journey. And I'm so grateful to have a chance to teach about this because walking through a human life not only takes courage, but there's all kinds of things that we encounter and we can feel alone with. Everything from finances to shopping to errands to, all the stuff of life. And we can be guided and helped through all of it. And all it takes is being willing to open up to living in a sixth sensory way as we walk across the planet through our lives. And I know that for many people that can be scary. It's like, what? That can't be true. Many people are very focused on five sensory living, and anything that's not of those senses is not anything to believe in or trust, or, it can't be real. And this is why I believe so much in spirituality, because to me, spirituality is an inward experience of the divine. And when we have these experiences and they accumulate over time, it just becomes obvious that it's real because it's the outcomes. When we go through synchronistic events, I've learned this also. When we go through synchronistic events, it's the outcomes of those events and how they lead us forward that matters so much. So, for instance, after college, I was going through a breakup and I was just utterly devastated. I had been codependent and I'd given my power away, and I had really didn't know how to be in a healthy relationship. And I was utterly devastated. And a friend at that time invited me to join a therapy group. And something in me really felt like, do this, just do this. So I did. I joined this therapy group and I learned, oh my God, so many things I'd been taught in life were not helpful to my inner being, you know? And so in therapy, I started learning about myself in a whole different way. And in that therapy group, one of my friends was the one who gave me Emmanuel's book. So there's a synchronicity of being invited into therapy, joining the therapy group, and then the synchronicity of being introduced to Emmanuel's book and all that I learned from therapy at that point from my therapist. And then after that, my dream at that stage of my life was to become a famous musician. And I had all my eggs in that basket. I was in a duo at that time. We had recorded tapes, we were performing, we were really growing. And then I applied to this really well-known college of music, um, and I got in. Very grateful for that. I drove to the city to kind of get my bearings and start preparing to, make the move and everything. And then I didn't get the scholarship I needed to go. And it blew my world apart. I was shattered. My whole dream was just utterly shattered. And I went out into a field near where I was living at that time, and I screamed at God for like 20 minutes. I was full of fear and anger. And, what do you do when your dream is shattered and you have nothing else to draw from? It was so, so hard. And it took me a long time, to accept that. And through the process of accepting that and starting to move in a new direction, I went through a variety of steps, and then I decided to become a therapist. And after a long time being a therapist and then looking back, I see how this was the right path for me. This was the path for my soul, not my ego. And the path of wanting to become a famous musician, an egoic, pursuit, was not have been right for my soul. And God knew what was right for my soul. And so it's only in hindsight, again, synchronistic events, even when they're painful, not getting into the school I wanted because I couldn't afford it, having to change life direction. And then this being what's right for my soul, I've learned so much about humanity and spiritual qualities from being a therapist: humility, empathy, compassion, understanding. And, I couldn't have planned that. So it's by being willing to allow and accept what's happening and follow synchronistic events and nudges and guidance that we are led in a way that's truly aligned with what's right for us. Sometimes it's very painful. Sometimes it's totally illuminating and wonderful. And we're never alone through any of it. So
I do have some questions for you,
yes,
but I don't want
absolutely.
to I don't want to break your flow because you're in it.
No, I invite your questions.
Oh, thank you for sharing and just so generously. Yeah, a few questions. First is the walrus. Uh, and I do promise listeners and viewers will talk about connecting with our own angels. But what was it about the walrus that got you?
It was understanding that I was eating in a way that was not healthy for me. It wasn't doing me any good. And I was filling my body in a way that was not mindful, that was not good for my body. My tummy was becoming bloated. And after I would eat food, I would just feel tired because the body has to work so hard to digest it all. And I think, she just knew that I would accept that without, it's never anything. A guardian angel does not criticize. They don't do anything hurtful. It just will never happen. They'll be honest with us and they'll encourage us to be accountable for ourselves because we have free will. They can't make us change. They can only give us prompts and teachings and encouragement and trust that we'll take that and work with that. So she just knew the word that my consciousness would accept, knowing I'm not being criticized, I'm not being judged. It's just the exact word that worked that I could accept and understand.
Like a
And
little
that's how
wake
our
up
guardian
call.
will work with us. Oh, pardon?
Like a little wake up call.
Exactly. Yes. Right. Right. So I hope that answers the question.
Yes. The other questions I had for you, two other big ones, is like me, you said, I can't believe you watched that video. And for anyone who doesn't know, it's the very first video I've ever filmed. I was feeling a lot of grief. I had been searching about the afterlife and I just needed to get it off my chest. So I sat in my car, held my iPhone to me for the very first time ever, and just poured out my heart about what I had learned and what I thought my purpose was. And this goes back many, many, many years. And look where we are now. So I've spoken with doctors and physicists and attorneys and spiritual people and a Navy commander and all kinds of people, engineers that had that tipping point that got to come out of the closet and tell people about this. This is a big deal. So you're 29 years as a licensed mental health counselor. I'm assuming you're working, kind of mainstream. That isn't, or maybe it is now, a spiritual venture, even though I'm sure you used your spirituality and your intuition through counseling people, but you've accredited yourself as a mental health therapist, correct? And then
Mhm.
I guess what I'm asking is, was there a time where you finally said, okay, I've just got to be on the loudspeaker about angels?
There was a parallel path as I was growing as a therapist and learning more clinically and working with my intuition. When I saw them for a long time as parallel paths, even though I knew at some point I had a calling to want to serve spiritually in a therapeutic way. I just didn't know how. So I would take CEU courses on spirituality and psychotherapy. And it wasn't until I discovered IANs and started learning a lot more about near death experiences, shared death experiences. I watched your interview with William Peters. Um, all spiritually transformative experiences, they come in all shapes and sizes. They come in so many ways. It's just so unique to every single person. And so I feel like I'm slowly turning my practice more and more toward wanting to help in a spiritual way. And so I've experienced that I've been able to do that. I've been able to, it's like I've received clients who have a more open kind of spiritual perspective, and they're open to working with that as part of their process, but it's only if it's up to them. They're the gatekeeper of that choice. It's not up to me. My job is to help them feel comfortable and know that they can take whatever the direction they want to, and I'll support them in that. And if it includes their therapy, great. And if it doesn't, that's fine. I totally respect that. Um, so, I really, and I've kept a lot of my spiritual experiences private as a therapist because it's not up to me to impose that on people. It's up to me to support where they are. And that's really important. So it's been a kind of parallel experience for a long time in that regard. And it just continues unfolding, in gentle steps. And I just pray to be of help in the ways that I can be, and to allow it to unfold as it's meant to. Um, so yeah, as a facilitator and a moderator in for the IN sharing groups, I can do a lot more very directly with that, and that feels so fulfilling. And then presenting the workshops felt so fulfilling. So I can
Certainly.
really, really express my spirituality through, those channels,
Yeah.
very openly, and teach very openly about this.
It feels
So,
good to be free and on loudspeaker. And for people who don't know, IANS is the International Association for Near Death Studies. You can find out about them at ians.org. Every year they hold a big conference. You can join live or by live stream. And I know coming up in 2025, it's going to be in Chicago, and you can find out about that on the website. It's a big one. I wanted to ask you about belief in the afterlife. We have many people, in fact, most people come to this show looking for reasons to believe, to be comforted through grief. Many times, having deep grief, it's kind of what cracks us open to go on that soul growth as to who we are spiritually and, who's with us, who's around us. What are your thoughts about the afterlife and maybe talk a little bit about grief, because I know I'm assuming you've had plenty of clients come to you about that. But if you wouldn't mind just talking about the afterlife, and then I'd love it if you would share how we can each know and get in touch with our own angels.
Sure, I'd be glad to. So, I am also a grief counselor, and I have a lot of compassion for grief. Um, my understanding through a lot of meditation is that I am a soul in a human body, and I am infinite. And so, I've lost both of my parents. I lost my father in 1997 and my mother in 2007. Both of them have come back to me from the afterlife. They've both had contact with me, literally continuing to work on healing our relationships. There was some dysfunction in our family growing up. There was trauma, there was difficulty. And, I've come to the point now of really, it's not about blame anymore. It's about understanding and forgiveness. And so, um, I know when we lose someone, grief is so deep. It's just so deep and encompassing. To me, when I lost my father, I felt like I was drowning in an ocean. And it took a long time before I could actually come to the surface and breathe again after that loss. And we were not very close. It was a very difficult relationship. And so the loss of him was not just the loss of him as my father in life, but it was a loss of being able to heal the relationship in life. And I didn't realize at that point that it could continue in the afterlife. And that's been a great discovery. Like, it doesn't end. The healing process does not end when a parent leaves their body. It can continue. And so, and there's been a real difference between my parents. My mother was more kind of emotionally and spiritually evolved than my dad. And so her process with me has been different than with my father from the other side. And my father has made some real strides in the last year or so in his own process. So he's able to really see and understand me more deeply now and really convey his regret.
How
So
do
yeah.
you communicate? How did you know that they were with you, and how do you keep this communication going?
Well, I took a course, a 6-month course on evidential mediumship. And I learned about what's called the energy signature. We can feel the energy signature of our parents, the sense of our mother, the sense of our father, the sense of a sibling or any loved one, because each of our energy signatures is unique to us and it's always the same. And so when I sense my mother, I know it's her. It's her. She has this kind of gentle, soft way of being, which was who she was in life. And so when she conveys something to me, it's telepathic. And I can feel the energy of what she's conveying. You know, a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I don't remember exactly, but it was sometime in the late spring or the summer, she came to me. It was amazing. I was standing in a thrift store. I love these relationships between mundane life and divine intervention because can happen anytime, anywhere. I'm in a thrift store and the song comes on the radio, on the speaker, and it's this woman singing about forgiveness. I had never heard this song. And I could feel the heart of this, like really asking for forgiveness. And I went and I stood under the speaker. And all of a sudden I understood. It's an intuitive understanding, which is why it's so important to grow into sixth sensory awareness. Because when we're in 5th sensory, we won't understand these things. We won't even get it. That was me for so many years. And so I stood under the speaker and I understood this is my mom. The singer wasn't my mom, she was herself, but the message was from my mother standing in this thrift store. And so I was moved by that. And shortly after I left, after the song was over, I left the store. I was driving in my car just blocks away from that place, and I pulled into Big Y and I parked in a supermarket parking lot. And she came to me and she said, I never realized how much I hurt you. Talk about accountability and honesty. And I just sat there. And that, I mean, she said some other things to me, and I barely remember anything, but that one statement will be with me forever because what it showed me is that she was evolving on the other side. She was growing, she was evolving, and she changed her understanding and took responsibility. So just because it can't happen on earth doesn't mean it can't continue in heaven. And there's so much hope in that. I want to share with you another experience about this. This happened recently. My mother had Alzheimer's for 9.5 years. It was a terrible journey. And looking back over time, even though I wasn't able to be for her, there for her in all the ways that I wish I had been. And I have felt a lot of sadness and regret for that. And one day I was in meditation and I was pouring my heart out about this in meditation to God. And then all of a sudden, I had this clairvoyant image of my mother on the other side in this robe, this beautiful single piece robe. Just, I think it was white. Sometimes I thought it was a different color, but when I looked at my note for writing the meditation, it was white. That's the way I noted it. And she was just walking in a very contemplative way. And I saw this in the meditation while I'm in that emotional space. And she looked over at me and she reached out her hand and she plucked a thorn out of my heart. And she just conveyed, we all make mistakes. We all have regrets. And then she kept walking, and behind her was this group of other people who were walking together. And I understood she was leading this group of people. She was serving on the other side. And for all of her struggles here, she continues growing in heaven. And that was such a beautiful moment to me because she conveyed her compassion and empathy and understanding for my own struggle with that. And again, our parents can interact with us from the other side, can work on healing. And my father has come to me and taken increasing amounts of responsibility for the ways he treated me as a parent. And that's making a difference. And when I say this, I don't say this to say it takes all the pain of grief away because we can't do that. I know it's a very difficult journey. And I know it takes time. And no one ever has the right to tell us, oh, you should be over it by now. I mean, that's just wrong. We each have our own grieving process. Everyone's process is unique, and everyone's process takes the time it takes. And we can learn to take care of ourselves, be kind to ourselves, be gentle with ourselves. And then when we're ready, and if we feel like it's necessary, we can open up to receiving ongoing healing from the other side. And my guardian angel has mediated that. I have felt that, she'll be the one who's helping my father come to me. And I've asked her to help with that. And she has. I mean, I can't explain all of this. I can't explain what happens on the other side. It's just another example of the support we can receive. And it
Thank you.
started out unexpectedly. It's the first time she brought my father to me from the other side. and he wanted to convey, his his, to take responsibility. It was harder for me to be open because I could tell he really was not at a depth of full responsibility, for how I had been treated by him. And over time, that's really increased. Now he really, really gets it. And I can feel the difference in a clairsentient way, that clear feeling we can have. We can feel that. So, yeah,
Thank
I hope
you.
that answers the
It
question.
does. And it shows me too, we offer medium classes and in our we don't die.com community. And I tell people you don't have to go out to be a medium, but to understand how your soul perceives information from the other side and also psychically what we can pick up from other people. So I always recommend people do that. But Andrew, it just sounds between your practice as a therapist, you have to be in the present moment with people, absolutely, and be where they are to pick up on all this. And also the training you've had, you really have lived learning, having these experiences and being present. So I say to all people that are interested, because I think we all want the magic formula that we can just talk to our parents like that, but it takes being present. It takes a practice of whether it's a walking meditation, being present in nature, feeling those different subtle changes of our energy. I have a friend who speaks like you do. She doesn't say angel, she says her guide. And she's known him for years and knows when he's present and what he speaks. And when she writes, she knows what's her and what's him. You talk about guardian angel. My friend can't believe that I don't know when my guides and angels are working with me. She says, how can you not know? I'm like, I don't know. I just in the flow. I trust maybe it's them or us. How can we trust, Andrew, that one, we each have a guardian angel, and two, how we can be in communication with them and trust when it's them or when it's us or when, we're together on this? How can we use this field that like we can't see it, but to know it's real?
When I started researching angels, I was asked in an angel reading, I was asked and encouraged to write a book. And my initial reaction was, who am I to do that? I've never written a book. I don't even know where to start. And it was only through time when that message stayed with me that I started paying more attention to it and then decided to actually act on it. That took a long time, months, if not a year or more. And then I was helped to start writing it. And by, a person, I reached out to a writing teacher and then another student of hers who was also an author, helped me to start writing it. And then as I was writing it, I went into a deeper study of angels and I read all kinds of books. And so there's an understanding that goes back centuries, if not thousands of years, that we have a guardian angel. And I learned that through different authors. And then I decided, I don't want to just read about angels. I want to experience them. I want to know how true this really is from my experience, not just read about it. So I believe in testing things. We test to find out. And it was through that process of beginning to learn how to about clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, claircognizance, and learning to recognize the signs, the synchronicities, that I began to realize, I am getting responses to my questions. One day I was driving to an appointment with a spiritual practitioner, and I was wondering if my guardian angel loves me or cares about me. I was wondering if she cares about me. Um, and I saw a license plate that had the perfect message for me that confirmed, yes, she loves me. I'm embarrassed because I can't remember it exactly in this moment. I teach it in the first of the series of three about guardian angel human relationships. But oh, it was true love. TRULUV, true love. That was the license plate. And when I saw that, I instantly knew, oh, that's the response. That's the answer. If I left my home seconds earlier or later, I never would have seen it. And so the synchronicities just line up. So, anyway, we practice, we test, we talk to our guardian angel like they're there, and we ask. We ask for help, and we ask to clearly recognize the signs. And when we do that earnestly and sincerely, and we open up to that, it's our receptivity that matters. If we have a closed mind and we say, oh, this is bunk, I can't believe this, then they can't get through. But if we decide to trust and open up and be receptive, nothing can stop it. And so for me, it's been many years. I mean, it's been over a decade since I started learning about angels. It's been, since 2016, I've been working with my guardian angel. It's a constant process of exploration and discovery and experience. And it's the experience that speaks for itself. And when we have enough accumulated experiences of guidance, we understand more and more that, yes, this is real. And that doesn't mean the ego pops in and wants us to doubt it. And we just keep asking for signs and noticing what comes to us. So, does that answer the question?
It
I
does
hope so.
answer the question. It's a
I mean,
journey of trust, of asking. I think it helps to journal our experiences because that negative mind wants to throw it all away. This is just your imagination. But there's some signs we get and those inner knowings that I think if we can revisit some of the things we've written down in our journal, it's like, I'm not making this up. And I don't think as human beings we're meant to know the big picture of life. I think, we're meant to stay grounded and get these experiences for our soul. So I don't think we're meant to be tapped into the bigger picture 24/7. That's just my thoughts.
I agree. It's a lot about humility. It's a lot about saying, I have everything to learn. Because as soon as we say, well, I know what I need to know, that closes off the channel. But when we say, oh, you know what? Ah, I'm just a tiny being in this vast universe. I have everything to learn. Then we become open and receptive and we welcome, you know, they welcome our receptivity to help us.
Yeah.
Um,
Did
so
you did you ever write your book? And how can we learn more about your teachings? Is there a place that they're available yet?
um, I'm still working on my book. I've finished a lot of the chapters, and there's still some editing and more to do about it. I'm still figuring that out. As I've been working on the workshops over the last 3 months, my time and energy has really gone to that. So I'm slowly coming back to my book. And so that'll take some time. And I thought it was near the end, and then I realized, recently, it doesn't feel like it quite is. There's more to learn. So um, if you at the IAN's website, there's the groups and events section of IANS. It's actually a different website. It's isgo.ians.org. And on there are the recordings, the video recordings of my workshops, and they can be seen there. There's three foundations of the guardian angel human relationship, and the second one is developing the guardian angel human relationship, and the last one is living with the guardian angel human relationship. And I would recommend reading books about angels, reading lots of books about angels from different authors and learning about them. And because it reinforces our experiences and we learn that we're not alone in believing in them, having experiences with them. There are thousands of angel encounters in books that are written about all kinds of angel interventions. And it reinforces that they are here and they can help us.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. And with our listener or our viewer in the show notes in the description, I'll put the link to that ISGO. So, because I know people will want to find out more about this. That's just the nature of humanity. How can we find out more? Andrew, any closing words for us today? And I really appreciate you being our guest. It's been fascinating conversation.
Well, thank you, Sandra. You're a wonderful listener. Um, I really appreciate being able to be here. And closing words: believe, believe, and know that we're not alone, and we were never meant to be alone. And there's tremendous love. We are loved so much, and we can open up to receiving that love.
Beautiful. Simple, not so easy, but simple. Really, truly is. It is about love and being open. If we could just imagine this loving being by our side that loves us unconditionally, no matter what we do, they see our humanity and they just love us. So it's my hope and wish and dream that we can all look at other people through that eyes of love. We're all just souls having this human experience, and it's really rough here. And then when you look in a mirror, love that person you're looking at too. So, Andrew, thank you so much for being our guest today.
You're very welcome. Thank
Oh,
you, Sandra.
you're welcome. And for our listener or our viewer, thank you for taking the time to be here. There's lots of things you could have been doing with this last hour, and you chose to be here. So that soul of yours gave you a little nudge, and hopefully we can all slow down a little and trust and have that conversation with our guardian angel. Again, my website is we-don't-die.com. Come along for a journey every Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on Zoom. There's 150 of us from all over the world that come together for our free Sunday gathering. It's inspiring. It's a bit entertaining too. And the last 45 minutes is a medium demonstration. So you get to feel just how close our loved ones always are. We're never alone. We're always supported. So in closing, I'm Sandra Champlain. I've been your host on We Don't Die. I do believe, like I said, that life is an education for the soul, but your life here is important. Never alone. We just need to ask and trust and journal and have some fun and be present and all of those good things. Follow your passions and you can never, ever, ever go wrong. So I really want to thank you for listening or for watching, and we'll see you again soon.